pipeline review is really important. When we don't do these things, it's very easy to just accept the fact that there's a little bit more of a fall off, or we get really frustrated with the fact that there is a bit of fall off and things aren't progressing the way that we'd like them to. We're not getting the sales numbers that we'd like to be achieving or have budgeted or set out to achieve. If we don't take the time to do the pipeline review, it's very difficult to identify what specific problems need to be resolved. Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Ownership Advantage. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at ActionCOACH in Central Texas. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's, again, been kind of top of mind for me and thought it would be maybe worthwhile for some of you out there that are running sales teams or have a few sales teams or individuals on your particular team. But the big thing here is regular pipeline analysis and reviewing call recordings, things like that. So one of the big things that has been kind of a big unlock for our team specifically has been taking the time every single week and or more frequently than once a week to actually sit down and review the actual sales pipeline. So what does this actually look like? What are we looking for when we do a pipeline review? Kind of how long do we go, or how often do we go through it? Who's a part of that meeting? What are some of the things that we walk through in that process? That's kind of what I wanted to break down a little bit here today and talk about why it's been important and some of the things that we've seen along the way. So first and foremost, when it comes to a pipeline review, the first step to this is have a sales pipeline, right? So if you're having conversations with prospects, ensuring that there's some way to capture where are they at in your sales funnel, from initial conversation to maybe a webinar, maybe it's a couple sales conversations that happen a little bit deeper down the funnel, all the way to that true sales conversation where you get to invite them to the next step and buy the product or service that you're offering in that particular moment. So what's really important about this is understanding where are the biggest drop-offs. So when we do a pipeline analysis, traditionally that happens at least once a week. So my favorite time to do it is sometime on a Monday. So call it, early, first thing in the morning on a Monday and or kind of later morning, something that's going to start the week off correctly so that the team has kind of here's what we need to go tackle in terms of what's in the sales pipeline today. So when we take a look at the sales pipeline, one of the first things we do is just look at where are the numbers overall. What are the conversion rates between steps? And is there anything that seems wildly off? Whether it's wildly off because it's positive, right? We've done way better than we anticipated or planned for, or way off in the negative in terms of we thought it was going to be a 50% conversion rate from this step to this step, and it's a 10% conversion rate. Like, whoa, that's way off on in terms of what that looks like. So first is identifying what are some of those initial bottlenecks or kind of friction points that stand out on the paper so that we can take a look and say, all right, what's happening here that's causing the result that we're seeing? This usually guides us in a direction so that not only do we just look at all the names on the page, but we can actually focus our conversation in the areas that have the biggest bottlenecks. So that's one of the first things that we do. The second thing that we do is we look at all leads that came in from the last pick a time period. Could be the last week, could be the last day, could be the last month. I think that will really be determined by how frequently you're having your meetings and how much volume you have. If you've got 100 leads a day that's coming into your business, being able to look at every single one of them in an hour and a half meeting is going to be a little bit more difficult to do. That might need a team to kind of split up in different components of it. Now, if you're in a business that does, one transaction a month and you've got 20 leads that come in an entire month, you're looking at a lot less volume. It's a lot easier on a week-to-week basis to say, hey, we're just going to look at the last 5 leads that came in, or the leads that came in this last week. So that's one thing, is looking at the number of leads and the names of the leads that are coming in. So let's look at this here. I'm going to actually reverse it, and we'll take that first, or that second part first. So the the pipeline review with regards to the names that are in the pipeline. First thing we want to do is take a look at where are they at and what have we learned so far. So whoever the rep is that's owning that relationship, it's kind of their responsibility to come and say, hey, this was my lead. This is what came in. I was able to get them on the phone. I wasn't able to get them on the phone, or I had that first meeting. I didn't have the first meeting. This is where I met them, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what I learned. I know X, Y, and Z about this. Here's how I know that. And here are some of the friction points that's allowing me to move this a little bit further down the road. Here's where they are. Here's the objections that they've shared. Here's the pain points. Here's the vision that they have. Like all the things that we can kind of get through in discovery, we want to tease some of that out. One, this really helps the sales rep to understand what it is specifically that's helping them move that forward. It allows them to identify some areas that maybe even they felt a little bit of friction on. Like, I came up with this particular objection. I couldn't quite get them to this next step. And as a team, we can kind of go through, all right, so let's ask some different questions. Let's dig in a little bit deeper. Was that the real objection? How did that conversation go? And maybe we can kind of start to work through some of those things as a team so that either we can look to re-engage that prospect that was in the pipeline, or help move that a little bit further down the road, or at very least be able to overcome that objection again in the future. So it's important to go through those. The next big thing with this is we start to look for larger trends. And what I mean by this is, what are the objections? What are the follow-up points? What are the things that we're hearing consistently or frequently enough in the pipeline that we as a team maybe need to take a little bit of time digging into and focusing on? So I'll give you a little bit of an example. And this ties us back into the first part of how we look at the pipeline. That's just some of the numbers and seeing where are conversion rates off the most. This kind of naturally leads into that part of that conversation. But if we notice through these conversations and the team having conversations like, hey, this is what I learned, this is what happened, here's the objections I'm facing. If all of a sudden we find out or start to hear and see the trend where maybe from sales meeting 1, which is really just kind of a get to know you, and offering them the next meeting as an example. And let's say they say yes to that next meeting. But over here in sales meeting 2, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of the actual sales conversation, maybe we're seeing a huge fall off before they get to that, right? They said yes at this first meeting, built a lot of rapport, the conversations were going well, and then something happens in between this interim period between call 1 and call 2, and a lot of these leads are falling off. That's a really great time for us to take a step back and say, okay, first, how does that look overall from a conversion rate standpoint? If we had planned for that to be a 80% show rate, right? We booked them. The show rate to this next meeting is supposed to be 80%. That's what we had planned for. That's what we saw historically. And right now we're seeing like 40%, right? There's a red flag to say, hey, there's something happening here, whether it's with how we're positioning it, it's objections we're facing, it's value that we're adding, it's sort of the type of prospect that's in the funnel. There could be a number of different reasons to dig into that and figure out what's going on. But there's clearly something that's off, right? So there's kind of indicator number 1. Indicator number 2 is we're going through this pipeline review, and this is really kind of what's coming up. It's like sales team members saying, hey, I'm having great conversations here. And they're saying yes. But then they're falling off. And here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing this objection and this objection and this objection, right? It could be something like, I thought about it and really, I just don't have the money to explore this right now. Or, I thought about it. I'm so busy. I don't have time anymore. Or maybe it's just a straight up, hey, I'm not interested in the thing that you have. I was just being polite. And I said yes to the next meeting, basically to get them off the phone, right? We can start listening for these types of trends, which allows us to then dig deeper and say, hey, is it a skill deficiency issue, right? The sales team and the team members that are responsible for some of these leads, maybe they could use some leveling up in the skills. How to position, how to nurture some of those leads, really highlight the pain points that the prospect has articulated that they have, and tying that back to the value that we're able to provide for them. It could be a skills gap. And if that's the case, then awesome. We now have something we can go and work through with the team. Perhaps all of those are pretty good, but we stopped doing something. So I love the couple examples I've heard out there from other sales teams where they were doing a lot of different, content and sending different things and things like that, and they stopped doing it. didn't realize that it was going to impact the sales funnel, but all of a sudden, on average, these people from call 1 to call 2 would consume, 1.5, 2 hours of content, whether that's video content, reading different articles, things like that, in between those two meetings. And as soon as that went away, conversion rate went down. It's like, okay, well, that's not fully a sales skill issue with the team members. It's actually a process issue that was lost. Okay, well, now we can reintroduce some of those things back in. Perhaps it's we just have the wrong leads coming through the funnel. We have to go back. We have to express with the marketing team and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. They're coming in, they're saying yes, but really then we've got a couple of steps that happen on their own, and it's meant to kind of disqualify people and get them to say no, so we can only keep qualified leads on the calendar. But that conversion rate's a lot lower than it usually is because we've had a volume of leads that just really weren't qualified coming into that first call, but they still said yes because they thought it might be interesting. Could be something like that. The point is that we're using this opportunity to sit down and go through what is actually happening in the pipeline, and let's start peeling back the layers to determine how do we help move this thing forward? How do we make it a little bit better? What are the things that we can do specifically? If I just say, hey, let's solve this conversion rate, it's like, that's great, but how? What specifically needs to be done with the team? Is it a skills gap? Is it a I don't know what to do gap? Is it a marketing to sales handoff gap? Like there's a couple different things that you can get into, but you only know if you're actually taking a look and starting to peel back the layers. So this is a really big piece. Oftentimes the objections and the things that we're hearing are going to be the leading indicators to help us understand, well, what's the underlying thing here? Well, I don't have time. Could be they legit don't have time, and there's some things that we can work through on that from an objection handling standpoint. Or maybe that's not the real objection. Maybe the real objection is that that's the easy excuse to give, when in reality we accepted a yes that was really a no on that first call. They said yes just to get us off the phone, and they sold us on that excuse. It's very possible, right? So we have to get into these types of things, and oftentimes it can be a little bit more challenging to do this individually. So if you're an individual salesperson listening to this and you're like, yeah, I can do that. I can do my own pipeline review. Absolutely. That's fantastic. But when you do it as a team, one, you're held to greater account, which usually gives a little bit more context to being able to kind of suss out these challenges. And two, you get kind of the collective brain of like, oh yeah, I saw that objection last week. Here's what I did to overcome that. Or, you know what, I've been facing that same thing too. How can we together figure out a solution to overcoming that particular objection? Things like that. So pipeline review is really important. When we don't do these things, it's very easy to just accept the fact that there's a little bit more of a fall off, or we get really frustrated with the fact that there is a bit of fall off and things aren't progressing the way that we'd like them to. We're not getting the sales numbers that we'd like to be achieving or have budgeted or set out to achieve. If we don't take the time to do the pipeline review, it's very difficult to identify what specific problems need to be resolved. So pipeline review is really important. My encouragement is at least once a week. If you're a high volume business, you could start every single day with a mini pipeline review, just the things that kind of happened in the last 24 hours. Usually it's phenomenally paired with some quick role play, script role playing type stuff if you've got lots of sales team members on your team. But really important component when it comes to sales success and increasing some of those conversion rates. So the last thing that I'll kind of go through on this general topic is now I'll start with a sales manager position or somebody who is managing a sales team. Now you may still be the owner that has a little bit of a sales team that you're managing, or maybe you've got some people in place for that. But taking the time to go and do some call reviews. Now, this could be like legitimate call reviews, like I'm doing cold calling and all the calls are recorded and I need to go and do a little bit of quality assurance on that. It could be Zoom calls or Google Meet calls, things like that, like recorded video calls. It could be, hey, I'm going to go on a couple calls with you to, meetings, things like that, just to kind of hear how the conversation goes, let you go through that, all that kind of stuff. But the call review aspect here is very, very important for tight feedback loops. Oftentimes when we're doing a call, I sit down, I do a sales call with somebody or a discovery call with somebody or kind of some of those early meetings, I'll feel it went a certain way. But unless I have somebody else go in and take a look and say, hey, Tanner, I actually, I saw you do this, or you missed this piece, or hey, this is something you did really, really well. It'd be awesome if you replicated that every single time. That outside perspective can be really powerful to catch things that maybe we didn't catch in the moment. So to get the most out of your team, going through and doing call reviews, not as a, haha, I gotcha, you were terrible here and I want to call it out, but as a training tool to say, hey, you're really good at these 3 things, and I think we can level up your skill in these 2 areas, and you're going to have a much greater experience, right? Phenomenal training tool. And I do highly recommend it. Now, if you're an individual contributor, if you're the one doing the sales meetings, I highly encourage taking, once a week, once every other week at least, and go through, just pick a couple of your calls and go listen to them. If you haven't done this before, it's going to feel really painful up front, but taking the time to do that allows you to really articulate, you know what? I've gone through so much sales training, or I've seen so many different sales calls, and what I heard in my head when I went through this thing and now what I'm seeing in the recording, they don't actually match up. I actually missed this piece and this piece. Okay, how do I get better at that? It could be I need some help with some training. It could just be now I've acknowledged it and I can practice it, and I'll be ready for that next call. It could be different things like that. But taking the time to do some self-reflection, some self-analysis on the calls is insanely important if you want to be really, really good, right? You think of professionals out there. I always like to go back to the sporting analogy, but athletes that are at the top of their game, that want to be the best professionals that they can be. They train, they practice, they watch tape, right? They do all of those things to become the best that they possibly can be in a sales situation like this, in a marketing situation, in most different roles within a company. My encouragement is become the best at it by watching tape, by learning the skills, by practicing, by role playing, by doing stuff with other people to level up your skills and push yourself to the next level, and being against, not necessarily competing, but putting yourself up against others who are really, really, really good at the craft. And how do you continue to get to that level? So call reviews are one of my favorite tools when it comes to leveling up kind of the conversion rate aspect and increasing some of the sales within a business. So those are kind of my top 2 things. They've been a little bit of top of mind for me, and I wanted to share them all with you as maybe some of you are doing some sales out there, and these tips may be some things that you want to go and test out. So with that, I will end and kind of conclude this conversation today. But regular pipeline reviews and call reviews, whether it's virtual calls or if it's actual voice recordings, things like that. But go do those. Just try one in this next week. See how it goes. See what you learn, and see if you can't implement something from this conversation today. With that, we'll be back again in a week or so with another beautiful content piece and some other topics that will help you continue to grow and build your business. Enjoy.